to Roger? Not to mention, what's his name?
My name is Klaus Heisler.
Yep, and you are named after one of the show's writers. CIL, good to know. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about American Dad, or more specifically, Klaus Heisler, the fish. Well, not the fish, the man in the fish's body, who studied psychology at Frankfurt University. I'm sorry to disappoint y'all, but I cannot do a good German accent. I'm not like D. Bradley Baker. Now, many shows have that one character who exists only to be ridiculed or destroyed by the other characters. And while that wasn't Klaus's initial purpose, by the later seasons, it practically became his only purpose. Well, that or being evil, but maybe being evil was more of a byproduct, hard to tell, we'll see. In a sense, he was like Meg as a fish. If Meg had the autonomy to rise up against her captors, or make relationships outside of them, meaningful ones. And besides Roger, which is a relationship I will not speak about because it's gross and ooky.
No, it was not ooky!
You watch Closure again and tell me it wasn't. The other Smiths don't really like him, so we have to ask ourselves a question. Why do the Smiths hate Klaus? And if they despise him that intensely, why do they go for the effort of keeping him around? Well, let's discuss. Me personally, I have a few ideas. But first off, we need to start at the beginning, all the way back in season 1, because I think it explains a lot. Contrary to what it seems, Klaus isn't a talking goldfish the same way Brian's a talking dog or Roger's a talking alien. Rather, he's a man whose consciousness was forcibly transferred into a goldfish. Don't think too hard about it, Cabo. Like, they don't say if it was just his brain or his vocal cords or both of it, and I don't care. He was an East German skier, which if you don't know anything about East Germany, watch either Hedwig and the Angry Inch or the Gernot and Strudel show to get some much needed perspective. Let's just say they weren't really buddy-buddy with the US, and that wasn't the best place to be. The CIA kidnapped Klaus during the 1986 Winter Olympics and switched his brain with that of a goldfish to keep his home country from winning the gold medal.
I used to have a dog. And legs. And arms.
This gets to be even sadder when you remember that during the last few days of his normal life, heartbreak struck. He had a great love, Elsa. Not that Elsa, even though my nieces would love that Elsa. Klaus met Elsa at university.
You mean you met in college? You're in the States now, say it the right way.
Okay, like I was saying, Klaus met Elsa at university.
Oh, I hate it!
And during the Olympics, he was going to propose. Alas, she was nowhere to be found. Because she was in bed. Because she was in bed with the entire East German bobsled team.
I was devastated. So that's why you can't be with a married man.
Dang girl, that's a lot of hot dogs. Meg Griffin would like to have a word with you. After the brain transfer, he was eventually gifted to Stan and Francine, which I have questions about. American Dad premiered in 2005. Did he just live with them for 10 plus years, or was he trapped at the CIA for some reason? Then Stan somehow got him. Like maybe they were gonna flush him until Stan volunteered to take him home? Or was he meant to be killed, but the CIA accidentally used the brain switcher and just forgot about him? Because this matters and this would be a great episode. Just saying, they could have answered it during the flippity flop, but we'll get to that later. Now first off, I think this is one of the main reasons the Smiths don't like Klaus. They're forced to live with him. Sure, you can arguably say the same about Roger, but he at least had the excuse of the life debt, as he does support the family to some degree, and he did endear himself to the other Smiths. Francine and Steve enjoy his company, and Steve himself even said he thought Roger was his best friend, and practically his brother. Nobody particularly wants Klaus there, and he doesn't want to be there. Already, they're off to a rough start. Meanwhile, his origins would also prove to be a major drawback, I'd imagine. Like I said above, East Germany was not a place you wanted to be. After World War II, Germany was split into two by the Allies. Allies. West Germany was under the authority of the United States, while East Germany went to the Soviet Union. Oh my god, imagine that timeline. You know, the one where Stan got Martin Scorsese off drugs and he never made Taxi Driver. What would Klaus's life be like then? To Stan, Klaus is a communist, or at best a commie sympathizer, and to everybody else, he's a Nazi, or both. And remember, this is back in 2005. It wasn't cool to be a commie yet. And it's not like these observations are without merit. Klaus can make awful comments from time to time, especially about Jewish people. Plus, one of his family members worked at Auschwitz.
My grandfather was a conductor at Auschwitz. No. He ran the kiddie train at the zoo. You know, it's a big town. There's other stuff there.
Klaus, Kyle would like to have a word with you. Granted, I did some research. There apparently was a town named Auschwitz in Poland, and that's why the camp was named Auschwitz. Maybe he meant that part. However, there's another reason people are ignoring. Early installment weirdness. Usually with shows, they don't plan everything from day one. Or if they do, they might change up their plans. The Smiths were all super different early on, be it how Roger went from a clingy, whiny weirdo to a sociopathic psycho, or how Francine went from a housewife to, well, Francine. Klaus originally was a huge jerk who happened to be a German fish.
This is Tim, Francine. This is Tim. You and I are meant to be happy hour.
He was more open about hating his circumstances and wishing he had a human body. Plus, he was the original writer darling, before Roger. Speaking of Roger, remember when Roger was leaking potato salad ingredients? And Klaus said this.
He secretes more after he eats. Stuff his face.
Why, Klaus, why?
Yeah, still German.
Not to mention how he had a huge crush on the housewife Francine, which he did not even try to hide.
Liebchen, you know, perhaps when you're finished there, you would stick your naughty pinky finger into mine bowl and let me feel you.
You know, part of me wonders if he's so in love with Francine because of proximity, or because she reminds him of Elsa. In the flashback, we saw that Elsa's blonde, like Francine. And when we hear Elsa's voice, it sounds like a German version of Francine.
Not too fast!
According to IMDb, apparently she's really voiced by Catherine Reitman, aka Maureen Ponderosa, another cat girl. But I thought for the longest time she was voiced by Wendy Schaal. Maybe Klaus thought the same thing? Who knows? Regardless, this is just another reason for the Smiths to hate Klaus. Not only do they have to live with a Nazi and a commie as their goldfish, they also have to live with said goldfish always trying to mac on their mama. Speaking of, early Klaus really reminds me of a more perverted Brian, which makes sense. Originally, Family Guy wasn't supposed to come back. That's part of why American Dad was created. Think about it. Anthropomorphic animal, check. Unrequited love for the housewife, check. Jerk to cover up circumstances of feeling trapped and insecure, check. Animal tendencies, checkity, check. I feel the reason they did not go through with this idea is, besides Family Guy rising from the dead, Roger was probably better to write for, and Klaus wasn't as popular as they thought he was gonna be. Which sadly, I kinda see. Pre-cancellation, Brian's humor primarily came from the fact that he was smart and sane, in spite of being a dog. We saw why he was with the Griffins, and despite the occasional conflict, he was still a beloved member of the family. Klaus, he's hated, and he doesn't want to be there, nor is he particularly wanted. It doesn't make him seem funny or a voice of reason or something like that. It makes him seem tragic. However, that doesn't mean the Smiths are totally evil. They're not the Griffins. Sometimes they do have a heart, and I think that's part of why Klaus is so despised. There have been times where they've tried to include him, or try to cater to him, to no avail. This is first expanded on in the episode Finances with Wolves. Francine has opened a muffin kiosk at the mall, one of her biggest dreams. What's worse is she cannot make dinner, cause, you know, she's not there. And Stan, being a conservative white male, doesn't know how to cook. Anything, not even mac and cheese.
Here we go, mac and cheese. Boil water. What am I, a chemist?
Yeah, maybe Francine made the right call, cooking many months' worths of casseroles after she moved to India, even if they all got freezer burned. Klaus claims he knows how to cook, and that if Stan puts his mind back into a human body, he'll act as his personal chef.
I just need a pan, some butter, white wine, a little paprika, oh, and my brain back in a human body.
You know I don't have the clearance to do that.
Well, I mean, Stan, you're sheltering an alien in your attic. I feel like if you can hide that from your employers, you can hide the fact you made Klaus human again.
You have two choices. Risk your career or order out. Perhaps they will use the tiny corn.
Klaus, look, I know Stan can't make mac and cheese. I mean, I shouldn't talk. I don't even like mac and cheese. But I don't think he's incapable of just putting a TV dinner or some leftovers into a microwave. Good thing Stan is too hungry to think straight, and agrees. To Stan's credit, he ends up giving Klaus a pretty awesome body.
I am gorgeous. Whose body was this?
He was the frontman for an Earth, Wind, and Fire cover band. They played the CIA summer mixer and tried to overcharge us.
This gives me questions. Unfortunately, Stan doesn't tell anybody else about the brain transfer, because 1, it's illegal, and 2, this episode had 4 plot lines going at once. And this is bad news.
Right away. But first let me ask you something. How many eggs should I eat to get enough energy to plow your wife?
3 should do it. What?
Klaus instead decides to use his new body to woo Francine. And to seal the deal, he flushes his fish body down the toilet.
Wiedersehen.
Question, how many times has Klaus's body been replaced by now? I think he's had like 3 goldfishes, maybe more. Feeling mighty, Klaus goes down to the muffin kiosk to ask Francine out for dinner.
Although I find you exceedingly fly, I'm much more interested in your business acumen. I would love to pick your brain.
You would?
And other parts of you that would lead to a quarter in the swear jar. But he is still pretty savvy.
Chip?
Stan never offers me chips.
Oh, no, thanks. I don't like chips.
At least he offered.
Eventually, Stan manages to track down the pair, after a lengthy car ride, which I won't get to.
This man's given me something you haven't for a long time.
We've talked about this. My neck gets tired.
Also, his chin can double as a plow horse. Seriously, does he have like 2 chins or something? Has there even been an episode yet about Stan's chin? Or why it's that humongous? Granted, Klaus is put back in a replacement goldfish at the end, because his new body is damaged beyond repair. Damage is already done. Klaus broke Stan's trust, and now he's gonna be punished by being trapped in that hated body forever.
Yeah, now I know why they say, once you've been black, there's no going back.
Which explains how, in later episodes, whenever that concept comes up, they just shoot him down. And don't look a Smith horse in the mouth, the Smiths are having money problems. And less money, mo problems. Klaus offers to get a job to make them money, provided he also get a human body.
My offer still stands. Put my brain back into a human body, and I'll get a job doing animal sounds. Listen to this one. Yup, 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 yup. I'm a rabbit!
Yeah, I bet you could voice a goldfish on TV. Totally. Or even Roger's son or something. Totes, babes. The Smiths refuse to listen to him, and it's treated as them being stupid. And also an excuse for the A-plot to happen. Wait, maybe finances with wolves was still fresh in their minds. Look, I'm not one to argue, it's just my horse sense. Meanwhile, in the flippity-flop, the CIA finds Klaus's body in the snow. Klaus is ecstatic to be human again, but Stan refuses to put him back in, even if it's just to ski.
Stan, please put me back in my body!
Sounds like a hassle.
A hassle? But this is my chance to be myself again!
Depressed, Klaus tries to commit unalive. Good thing he's just as horrible at doing it as Linda Stotch or Bill Dauterive at Christmas. Eventually, Stan relents and takes Klaus to the CIA. Unfortunately, they waited too long, and his body is now being used as an ice machine by the scientist, show creator, inserts. Too lazy to look up their names.
This is all your fault! I'll never ski jump again. You completely boned me!
Well, usually you debone fish, so I did good, huh?
Out of revenge, Klaus switches bodies with Stan for a few days.
Stan, you have to wake up. We have to go. Guten Morgen, fish face!
Klaus!
To be fair, he does attempt to hide his illicit activities from the other Smiths, but they quickly catch on.
Hey, Stan!
Hey!
Oh my god, Klaus is in Dad's body.
Well, he was in such a state of shock that he completely blacked out. He couldn't remember a thing. It wasn't until later, when he was washing the blood off his hands, that he realized they were already dead, and he was already Stan. Why did I write this into the script? With Francine and Haley's blessing, Klaus does all sorts of vile things with Stan's body that would get this video demonetized if I were to mention them.
I like holding the smoke in my lungs until it's completely absorbed into the cells.
Stop that right now! I forbid you to damage my body!
Then, once it's time for them to switch back, Klaus refuses, intending to keep Stan's Chad Dad Dilf body permanently.
But you said...
I know what I said. I fibbed.
Give my dad his body back!
Punch in the face!
And ski the titular flippity flop, which will almost certainly kill Stan's body. Trapped as a goldfish, Stan does end up swimming a mile in Klaus's shoes. I mean, he wore shoes back when he was Roger's secretary.
I am not your secretary. Now I am.
And also, he ends up walking a mile in Klaus's real body.
What are you looking at? That guy has my body. See, this is his old body. Then the CIA made him a fish, and then he stole my body.
Gross. And he finally seems to understand why Klaus is the way he is. Because being Klaus, it sucks reproductive donkey organs.
And I vow to find you a new body so you can be human again.
Thank you, Stan. When do you think it will happen?
Probably never, buddy.
Well, Stan, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but of mice and men exists. And somewhere down the line, he eventually becomes a human, and a grandpa, and a bunch of other animals in the interim. Okay, we've established that Klaus is stuck in a goldfish body indefinitely, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. He wants out, and then once he gets out, he does something stupid that gets him placed back in. And then he wants to get out again, and then status quo. I guess it could explain how in later episodes, Klaus seems to have a life outside of the Smiths, especially his boys. Not sons like Roger, but actual friends. Cool friends. He knows he's stuck like that, so he just makes the best out of a bad situation. Now, I get it. Klaus doesn't like to be with the Smiths, but everybody knows that you can try to enjoy your circumstances, or at least find contentment in them. Outside of these episodes, there were plenty of other times the Smiths tried to show Klaus dignity, and instead of appreciating them, he treated them like rubbish. In Edible Panties, which I just now realize is a pun on edible panties, took me almost 10 years, some English major I am, Klaus cries to Steve that he hasn't felt the touch of another human being in many years, because fish.
I haven't felt the touch of another human being in 6 years! I just want to be held!
And this is also pre-Denuda, where he cannot find a high-class lady who can meet his narrow appetites.
It's about 6 foot, blonde, stacked, not afraid to get down with the fish. Oh, and this is very important. She must be 9 months pregnant.
Humbled, Steve indulges him.
There. You're not alone.
Ew, no offense, Klaus. I could never imagine touching you. Not that I'm afraid I'm gonna get sick or anything, it's just you're a fish. It's like touching a super slimy rubber ball. Ew. This backfires as it turns out Klaus has discovered he has the ick, aka fish herpes.
Oh my god!
Yeah, well, I'll let you go. You probably have some calls to make yourself. Sorry.
As a result, Steve spends more and more quality time with Klaus, mostly because he's forced to. Everybody else, especially his own friends, believe that catching the ick is like catching the plague. Despite this, the two somehow have fun together.
Steve, no, don't give me a boy bride. Oh, you're teasing teasing me. Salacious!
At least until Steve realizes that ick isn't permanent, and there's an easy fix. Just buy something at the pet store. Turns out Klaus knew that all along, and he purposefully infected Steve so Steve would be forced to spend time with him. That's sad, on many levels.
How absurd! Listen to how crazy absurd you sound! Do you want to make cookies with me?
You know, this also reminds me of something. Oh yeah, Brian giving Chris and Stewie herpes. A problem I had with that episode was they never actually explained why Brian gave them the disease, besides he was embarrassed. And considering how herpes is really spread through saliva, not blood, Stewie got it through, say, Lois giving him a goodnight kiss. But that's neither here nor there. Oh, and kinda like Brian did with herpes, Klaus tries to pull the same scam on somebody else when the other one doesn't work out. Good thing he might be getting karma.
Oh, you poor thing. Fish can't get herpes, can they?
Well, according to Google, apparently they can get a form of it. At least she repaid him in kind later by giving him a crappy haircut. I feel like a more recent episode, You're Not in Strudel, also dealt with this idea. For some reason, Klaus doesn't feel like sharing with other people. It even causes his boys to leave him.
This is especially hard, because I hate confetti cake. Courtney, I cannot believe this is your favorite.
Oh god, not the boys! They had such a good show on Amazon Prime. I really gotta watch it. The Smiths try all they can to get Klaus to share, to no avail.
So, sharing is when you get less of what you want because you're a chump. Sounds pretty stupid to me.
Eventually, they decide to put on a show for Klaus, reenacting an episode of his favorite childhood program, Gernot and Strudel. Children are weak and have very small brains. Oh, like Klaus is a goldfish. Anyhow, the episode deals with sharing, and it seems as though Klaus finally gets the point across.
May I share your potato?
I am a greedy and I will not share. Manja! Hum!
I am dying.
Strudel, you dumb cop! You should have shared with him.
You know, part of me wonders why a show from East Germany would teach kids how to share. Wouldn't it be like sharing is awful and Strudel was right not to share his potato with Gernot? Gernot's body was entrained to not feel pain. The problem is that Klaus starts acting like that weird kid who remembers way back when that they used to like Yo Gabba Gabba when they were like 5, and then the memory resurfaces when they're an adult, the perks of being a wallflower style. He wants the Smiths to continue doing the show, and to accomplish this, he knocks them out and puts their minds into the bodies of puppets. I love Francine's puppet.
Yes! I'm craving a hand up my ass in a very unnerving way.
Oh, and to be sure they can't leave the house, he puts up defenses. And he means for them to do this for at least the entire summer. You want to know who gets it the worst? It's not Haley, and it's not Jeff, and Steve and Roger have their own subplot.
Damn it, I'm the worm.
I know, Staniel. Look at your dang worm leash. Good thing they convinced Klaus to free them by tapping into his childhood trauma.
But after sharing it, I feel so much better. Thank you.
Oh, and he also has to ask his boys to share with him. Share their dirt bikes? That's what they're called?
My boys have bad ATVs.
Look, I'll be honest, I don't know how cars work. I don't even have a license. I'm gonna be 24 next month, and my parents think if I drive anything, I'll end up like SpongeBob. I mean, they're right. They are able to get back to Dr. Weitzman and switch back.
Sure thing! I actually have your bodies right here. Nothing gross. I've actually been using them as a sofa.
Why does this remind me of that one episode of Rick and Morty where they go to the reality where people are chairs and phones are food? Granted, while I don't want to bring up closure, I did like how during the Great Space Roaster, outside of his opening comments, Roger did not really try to torture Klaus. At most, he trapped him in the washing machine to lure Steve into a trap. That's the extent.
Klaus! It's stuck!
Get away! It's a trap! He's here!
Steve! Behind you!
I guess it's because Klaus didn't really participate in the roast outside of watching it, but hey, worth mentioning. They're like brothers. Then there's one episode I cannot go without mentioning because it's one of my favorites, Dr. Klaustus. It's probably the biggest heaping of respect that Klaus has ever gotten from his family. Roger is doing his Dr. Penguin persona once again. This time he's having secret sessions with the family, only rather than confront their issues, his entire shtick is they have to keep their secrets bottled up, because ignorance is bliss.
It's natural to think about Francine when you're sleeping with Haley.
No, that's terrible advice!
What people don't know can't hurt them.
Oh, you're so wise, Dr. P.
Klaus, who is actually a psychology major, doesn't believe such a method is good long-term, and thinks the family should just admit their secrets in a healthy manner. That way they can find solutions. And then Klaus himself can gain some respect.
I can't believe the family comes to you for therapy. People shouldn't ignore their emotions and avoid their problems.
Roger has other ideas.
Snow globe!
No! No!
To help the family, Klaus forces one of Roger's personas, Sergeant Pepper, to go to Iraq, even though I think the war ended by that point.
Bye-bye, Dr. Penguin! Dr. Klaus is in the house.
And because Roger can't be in two places at once, I mean, his super speed only works so well. And because Roger can't be in two places at once, he ends up going to Iraq, while Dr. Penguin goes to visit his Aunt Evelyn.
Aunt? Get a load of Her Majesty.
Look, I'm sorry I said aunts and not aunt. It just Roger said aunt, so I felt like I had to. Klaus tells the family that he will be holding therapy sessions in the interim.
You can't just put on glasses and pretend to be a doctor, Klaus.
The glasses are prescription, and I am not pretending.
Only because he said it and not Dr. Penguin, they don't listen. Meaning, rather than ask for help, he has to sit in the cabinet and closet eat a bunch of chocolate.
I don't have very much money.
Klaus, be careful you did not hit any of Jeff's man gravy. Just saying, you know how he suffers from HLS. Klaus eventually decides to let the cat out of the bag, catfish, and simply tell everybody else's secrets, which admittedly I disagree with him on. Francine, none of what they're doing is outright illegal, it's just immoral, and that's still their business. They shouldn't be doing it, but that's their decision. Besides, Klaus, look, I hate to say it, but you're a idiot. Don't you see you have blackmail? Stan, do what I say, or I'll tell Francine you have inbred dinner wolves. Haley, clean mine bowl, or I'll tell your husband what you really do when you go jogging. You are a horrible catty princess. So not fetch. And Klaus doesn't get the results he wants.
You should talk to a professional. Now, my office hours are...
That malnourished pasty geek! I knew I should have aborted him!
Damn, girl. But anger is a natural emotion and part of the healing process, so I applaud you. Chaos ensues, and the family is angry at Klaus, especially Stan.
How the hell is a fish gonna get an alien back from Iraq?
Well, Stan, let me tell you a story. When the towers fell, the world was set in motion. Klaus went across the ocean to where bombs fell with White James to convince Roger to come home. Too bad Roger found sanctuary in cleaning outhouses, and he will be consumed when love explodes. What, nobody watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch? I'm trying to get people involved. Besides, Klaus is East German. I'm sorry, it just fits in with the whole video. Good thing Klaus knows how to exploit Roger's possible mental illness by dressing him up as Dr. Penguin when he's sleeping.
This isn't a Chablis. This isn't my aunt's place. Aunt Evelyn! Aunt Evelyn, it's me, Raphael! Raphael Penguin!
Dr. Penguin and Klaus go home, and Dr. Penguin provides the perfect solution to all of their problems.
Everybody go back to lying to each other.
That's not gonna work. The secrets are all out in the open. We can't just forget them.
Well, I mean, you could do it with other secrets, start from scratch. Led with no other option, Roger stops being Dr. Penguin, and the family devolves back into chaos. But chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Klaus finds out that Roger won't listen to him because he's a fish.
That's the first time I've listened to you.
Maybe it's because it came from a man and not from a fish. I have an idea.
Using Roger as a more authoritative mouthpiece, they follow all of his suggestions and get his respect.
Hey, no one is dismissed! Not until you thank this fish! These are all his ideas! I'm just an authoritative mouthpiece!
Aww, Phil does kinda suck though. Out of gratitude, the Smiths decide to buy Klaus a booty quest.
How can we ever thank you?
Take your pick, Klaus. Your family pay for a full quarter hour.
But why only 15 minutes? That's not enough time. Then there's the idea Klaus acts like a jerk because the family always makes fun of him. They don't show him respect, so he pays them back in kind. During no weddings and a funeral, Klaus gets fed up with how much the Smiths keep bullying him. And this time, they seem to have gone way too far.
Help!
Angered, Klaus decides to leave the family permanently.
I'm leaving forever. One day you'll all regret how you treated me.
15 years pass, and then he supposedly joins. During this time, the Smiths all split up, and they're all distant. Or they're like Jack Skellington, at the top of their game, but super duper miserable inside. On the eve of Klaus's funeral, there's a nun lady named Sister Madeline, who is sent to take charge of the preparations.
I met Klaus while passing out food and blankets on Skid Row.
Now, where are you passing out these free blankets?
Sister, why do you sound you sound like somebody I know. I just can't put my finger on them. Wait, do you know some bloke named Squilliam Fancyson the Third? As it turns out, Klaus planned the whole funeral to get back at the Smiths. He's the nun.
Oh, but it is about me. And it's about Klaus. For I am Klaus!
Wait, how did he get her body, though?
Klaus, where's your door claw?
I buried it. It's what I bludgeoned the nun with before I stole her body.
At the funeral, he wants the Smiths to say how much they love him, despite the abuse, but they can't bring themselves to say it. Instead, they remember all the good times they had crapping on Klaus.
Let it flow.
I'm sorry. I'm not crying, I'm laughing. Just remembering this time Klaus tried to convince us he could kick a football over a Burger King.
Angered, Klaus goes with Plan B and implants the minds of the Smiths into his old body in order to give them a taste of their own medicine. It's only by wailing on Klaus do they manage to get over themselves and escape, and Klaus is happy with his new role, the family punching bag.
Klaus is incredibly important because he sucks so much. Thank you. That's all I wanted. I just needed to be appreciated for something.
You know, many people say this episode is the show's equivalent to Seahorse Party. Remember that episode which said that Meg getting beat on by everybody else was a good thing? Because by being the family lightning rod and taking the abuse, it somehow made them feel better and made her a mature person? Yeah, that sucks. While I have my own problems with this episode, I feel like this does the concept slightly better because the moral is delivered a little more comedically. It's easier for me to laugh and see they don't really mean it. Besides, this is another one of those non-canon episodes. Plus, when you think about it, there are times when Klaus deserves what's coming to him, outside of what's happening here, which was just major Flanderization. There's moments I covered in this one video, or when he ran that bodega, or tried to make Steve a frat brother.
What game do you turds want to play first? Milk gallon chug or hot sauce pee hole?
Milk gallon?
Hot sauce pee hole it is!
Favorite Klaus joke, hands down. Okay, with this out of the way, let's ask ourselves a question. Why do the Smiths hate Klaus? Is it because he deserves it? Or does he deserve it because he was hurt by them? Or does he not deserve it, and the Smiths are all a bunch of emotionally abusive bullies? Once again, part of me feels like it's a mix of the first two extremes. The family doesn't want Klaus around because of his origins, and he respects responds that he's sad. Only whenever they do pay attention to him, either because they feel bad for him or want to spend time with him, he does something stupid and selfish to ruin it. So that makes them want to not pay any attention to him and Klaus to not realize where it's coming from. And that leads to an everlasting cycle. Like to the point where it makes him an evil genius. An evil genius who makes terrible rap videos. Regardless, I feel like between Meg and Klaus makes a better character to wail on in spite of his circumstances. Meg is a teenager, while Klaus is a fish. Meg's only real crime was being born. Regardless, I'm suddenly hungry and in the mood for a double filet-o-fish meal. Somehow it's cheaper than the normal filet-o-fish meal. Bye. Hey Klaus, what are you gonna do after this review?
Time for Klaus to show how much of a man he really is.
I'm not very much of a man. I'm not very much of a man. I don't have very much money.